I have a simple line here, and I'm just going to create a quick little line label style for it. So the first thing I need to do before I do that is actually just throw on any kind of a label, and I will do that through the General menu, Add Labels. I'll use Line and Curve, and for right now I'm just going to use this standard. I'm just going to add it right to the line. And as you can see, the standard style has the bearing on the top, the distance on the bottom, and then this directional arrow. I want to create one that has a bearing on the top, a couple of spaces, a distance on the top with a foot mark after the distance, and get rid of the arrow. So in order to do that, we're going to create a brand new style. And I'm going to say, I'm going to call it BD for bearing and distance. Standard for right now is fine. And I'm going to go right to the Layout tab. And I have 4 components under there. The table tag is something that if this line is used in a table, it needs to have that. And there's no way to get rid of that. You cannot delete that. That's always inherent to all line labels, whether you use it or not. The directional arrow I want to get rid of, and the distance for now I want to get rid of. So when I click on directional arrow, I can just remove that by clicking that red X. I'm going to go down here, and now that directional arrow is not part of the list, and I want to do the same thing with the distance, because we're going to use the bearing component and add the distance there. So once again, we'll get rid of the distance component. Now we have the table tag and only the bearing. So on the bearing, I can call that bearing and distance if I want. And now it's called bearing and distance, a little bit more descriptive. And I'm going to go into the segment contents, the text contents, using this button right here. And I don't see it until I click inside here, and then I see this ellipse button. When I open up this dialog, I'm okay with the bearing for right now, but I'm going to click at the very end of that, and I'm going to hit 2 space bars, and then I'm going to go grab the overall general length, segment length component, and I will import that with this import button right here, and then I'll click to the end of that, and I'll use the foot mark, the single quote mark. When I say OK, and I say OK again, and I make sure that this label is there, what I can do is this is currently not set to the correct label, so I need to go back and edit the style to my B and D here. When I do, I get my results that I want. But I'm not too happy with the results as they are. I want to change this a little bit. So what I can do is click on it, right click and go to Edit Label Style, and it's the B and D, the bearing and distance style that I want to edit. I can click the blue button here. Then I'm going to go back into this bearing and distance contents area, and I'm going to change the bearing and distance format because I don't want the spaces in there. So what I can do is I can remove the spaces by selecting the new value that I want. Now if I click anywhere else, you will not see the results. I have to re-import that over this one. Since this one is selected already, this value is going to overwrite that value when I click this button. And of course you saw a little bit of a change there. I also want to put a single dash, like a hyphen, between the bearing and the distance. And once I'm okay with that, I say OK and OK, and it takes on the new style. And so if I pull this up, this is called dragged state. And you see that it's just a bearing and distance, same way as it was before, but it has no border. And let's say I want to put a border around it and maybe a splined leader or something like that. Well, I have to go back into Edit Label, click this button right here, and select the dragged state selection right here. And I want a spline leader, so I select spline leader. And for the border visibility, I want to say true. And for the background mask, I can even mask this also, and it'll take on that masking within the style. I also want to change the border type to rounded rectangular. So when I make these choices, and now when I drag it, I get what I chose, which is that filleted border and a splined leader.